listening to A Scary State. And this week, we're not listening. You're listening. We're talking about Indiana. So, Lauren.
Yes, Kenzie.
That was already scary.
That was scary. Okay, so real quick too. I just think that we should maybe limit how much we talk about politics so that when people come to the podcast, they can get away from the scariness of the world.
Sure.
But we also want to say our last time talking about it in a little
So
bit.
many words.
Yeah.
It was fresh last weekend.
Yeah. That was why.
Yeah.
If these executive orders are affecting you, just know we are here to support you.
Yes.
We are here if you just need.
We're against them and for you.
Yes, we're here to support you. If you need to vent, our inboxes are always open and we will happily vent along with you. So I just wanted to say that to let you know that we're on your side. We're here. We'll all get through this.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to suck, but we'll get through it.
We will unfortunately have to suffer the consequences of other people's actions.
Yes.
So,
but yeah.
Hoosier.
So I just wanted to say that. Hoosier.
Wow. Didn't even do that on purpose.
Is that how it's pronounced?
I think it's Hoser. Hoosiers?
It's definitely not Hoosiers.
Any Hoosiers. Maybe it's a Hoosier.
Maybe it is a Hoosier.
Any Hoosiers.
Let's look it up so people don't get mad.
I would also like to say that we do look up majority of ways to pronounce things. And if we still say it wrong, blame Google.
Hoosier.
Yes.
So we were close. Any Hoosiers?
Any Hoosiers. I don't like it. Any Hoosier.
All right, so we jump into the Hoosiers?
Yeah, go for it.
Hoosiers simply call it the Dunes. Indiana's reputation as a cornfield capital belies a surprising tourist gem, a state park with more than 3 miles of pristine sandy shoreline. Indiana Dunes State Park skirts Lake Michigan at Chesterton, Indiana, about an hour's drive from Chicago. The park's freakishly gigantic natural piles of sand loom nearly 200 feet tall. Luring some 3 million people yearly, it's the state's top visitor attraction. For generations, families from Indiana and surrounding Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois have traveled to the park to swim, camp, and hike. Flora, the place has it. The Dunes area claims more natural orchid species than Hawaii. Fauna, among birders, it has a reputation as one of the Midwest's best spotting locations. A hiking highlight, Trail 9. The path starts in the woods, eventually emerging among the dunes with a breathtaking bird's-eye view of one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. That actually sounds very pretty.
It sounds very peaceful.
It does. Southern Indiana's karst landscape includes features like Blue Spring Caverns with a 21-mile-long subterranean river system and Marengo Cave, a national natural landmark known for its stunning formations. Covering parts of 9 counties, the Hoosier. Any Hoosier. Yeah, okay. Covering parts of 9 counties, the Hoosier National Forest includes Patoka Lake and Hickory Ridge Lookout Tower, where visitors can enjoy panoramic views of the forest. Knobstone Escarpment, stretching 150 miles, this rugged terrain includes the Knobstone Trail, Indiana's longest hiking trail, offering views of sandstone cliffs and hardwood forests. Hardwood forest? That sounds interesting.
Never mind.
What?
I was like, is it the trees that they use for hardwood? But that doesn't make sense.
They use a lot of different trees for hardwood.
Hence why I said never mind.
Yeah, but on this thing, we never let anyone be like, oh, never mind.
I understand, but I would just like to say I corrected my own stupid thought.
Okay.
So, for the record.
You corrected it, but we're still always going to have to say the stupid thought.
That's fair.
Perfect. Northern Indiana's glacial legacy is visible in features like kettle lakes, such as Winona Lake, and moraines like the, Valparaiso moraine that mark ancient glacial edges.
Basically, the United States used to be one big block of ice.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Often called the heart of Indiana, the Wabash River is a vital waterway that supports diverse species, including river otters, and is a favorite spot for canoeing and fishing.
That's actually kind of what they sound like.
Oh, wonderful.
I didn't mean for it to come out that way. That's okay.
Indiana's forests support a thriving timber industry and are essential for wildlife.
So maybe it is the trees they use for hardwood.
Maybe it's just a lot of different
Maybe my
trees.
thought wasn't so stupid after all.
Oh, yeah.
Hardwood forest. Wait a minute. See?
I think that it provides different trees because this says, our notes, with oak and hickory trees providing habitats for species like white-tailed deer and wild turkeys.
Okay, but when
so
it says
maybe,
hardwood forest.
Yeah, so maybe they're forests that have a ton of different trees, and those are the trees that are used for hardwood.
Right, so my thought actually wasn't so stupid.
But when
it's very correct.
When I
it
think
was
of
the trees they used for hardwood.
Hardwood forest, I think of like the planks of wood that you put in your house and your kitchen just like up in the forest.
Your thought was way tougher than mine.
But mine's more fun. Spanning nearly 16,000 acres, the Brown County State Park is Indiana's largest, famous for its hiking trails, Augley Lake, and its connection to the scenic Covered Bridge Loop. Do you think there are a lot of bridges on the Covered Bridge Loop?
And I bet all those bridges got covers.
Areas like Goose Pond Fish, wow, and wildlife area are important for biodiversity, hosting species like the whooping crane and salamanders,
Whoop, whoop.
along with rare plants like swamp milkweed.
I just can only get the singular guy to laugh at my joke.
Actually, we're not going to have anyone laughing at the joke because I forgot to add the little extra record.
Boo.
I'm sorry. But it's okay because I'll make sure it's on for both of ours. Because we got to give the people the sound effects that they want.
And don't want.
Reintroduced in the 1950s, wild turkeys now thrive in forests and fields across Indiana, with populations supported by habitat restoration efforts.
Wait, say that word again.
Habitat?
There we go.
What did I say?
It sounded like you said habitat.
Oh, habitat. The limestone from Bedford and Bloomington have been used in iconic structures like the Pentagon and the Lincoln Memorial, making Indiana limestone globally renowned, making it also the limestone capital. Each spring, Indiana's forests and prairies come alive with wildflowers like jack-in-the-pulpits and bluebells.
Names for some flowers are fucking hilarious.
Yeah, they are. Turkey Run State Park is a hotspot for wildflower enthusiasts. Conservation projects, including hacking sites. What is a hacking site?
I don't know.
Hacking sites like Lake Monroe helped reintroduce bald eagles, which are now frequently seen soaring near rivers and lakes.
It's like hacking, like it's talking about like, okay, hold on.
Like hacking through a forest with a machete?
That would be whacking.
That's also called hacking.
They're hiking through the forest and hacking. Well, the Google's not helping because all it's bringing up is hacking like computer hacking.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I don't think that's right.
No, it's so I don't know. I can't do it.
Well,
So it'll remain a mystery.
it will. That's fine. Found in Twin Swamps Nature Preserve, the cypress swamps are remnants of ancient floodplain forests where bold cypress trees stand tall with their distinct
I'm
knees.
pretty sure it's cypress.
Cypress. Cypress. I don't know.
Well, at first, when you said cypress swamps, I was going to be like, oh, well, I would say it's cypress. But then when you said bald cypress trees, I know it is cypress
Okay.
trees, not cypress trees.
Cypress. Me.
Yeah.
The Mascatatuck National Wildlife Refuge spans nearly 8,000 acres. The refuge is home to over 280 bird species, including tundra swans in winter, and offers trails and viewing platforms. Didn't the last date we have talk about tundra swans?
I don't know.
I think it did.
Well, Indiana is not too far from South Dakota.
That's true.
So,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Orchids like the showy lady slipper grow.
see? Funny.
What?
That's the name of a flower.
Oh, lady slipper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's funny.
Grow in wetlands and fens, while others like the yellow fringed orchid thrive in prairie-like habitats. There are actually a lot of really weird names.
Yeah.
The Prairie Creek Reservoir is a 1,252-acre reservoir near Muncie, and it off Muncie? Muncie? Also, states have really weird cities and towns, and we can't get in trouble for not knowing how to pronounce all of them. All right, it offers recreation activities and is a key spot for migratory waterfowl, including loons and herons. Oh, buffalo trace. This historic route, carved by bison, migrated to salt licks, influenced early settlement patterns, and is preserved in parts of southern Indiana's trail systems. The Shakamak State Park features 3 man-made lakes, Shakamak, Lenape, and Kickapoo, and the park is a haven for kayaking with trails winding through forests and wetland areas. Indiana's caves, such as Wyandotte Cave, host colonies of the endangered Indiana bat, which plays a vital role in insect control and cave ecosystems. Southern Indiana, especially around Brown County and, Horodsburg, is famous for its geodes, which often contain sparkling quartz, calcite, and other minerals inside. Wow, Indiana.
I think you're just, the being married to Massachusetts and makes you like overthink how to say places.
I think so.
Like,
because
I
some
think you're
places should be really easy to pronounce.
traumatized.
But then with Massachusetts, it's like, look at how you think you would say it and then don't say it that way.
I think when we move out of the Northeast, we can assume that most places are said how they sound.
Okay, yeah.
spelled. I only know Muncie for sure because I was listening to podcast for my story for today,
Mm-hmm.
and they said Muncie.
Yeah, probably better than Munchie, but you know.
Well, kind of depends on what they offer you. If the stopping point is for these migratory birds, they munch.
They do munch.
But I think it's Muncie.
I think it probably is Muncie. That sounds a lot better. All right, Mackenzie, what story do you have today?
I thought of another sound.
Oh, yeah?
So we would have like, boo. And then we would have, aw. And then we'd have, wah, wah, wah.
Uh-huh.
And then we'd have, ooh.
Ooh.
Exactly.
Ooh, I like it. And now this is documented forever. So when we forget,
we can just go back.
We'll have it.
Yes. Today we are traveling to Portland, Indiana. Not Portland, Oregon. Portland, Indiana.
Or Portland, Maine.
Or Portland, Maine.
Mm.
I think Portland, Maine came first, and then Indiana, and then Oregon.
That would make sense.
Based on how things were settled.
Maybe they really liked Portland, Maine, and they're like, we need another one in Indiana.
Well, I saw a comment, I think it was on the Reddit post that I was looking at for this. And I think someone asked, how does Portland, the name of Portland, get to Indiana?
Mm-hmm.
And I think somebody said something about people coming from Maine, Portland, Maine.
Oh.
And having traveled. So that's why I said what I said. I could be totally wrong. I have no idea.
I said what I said.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong.
I like it. If you say it with enough conviction, it will make sense and people will think it's real.
Yeah, but then that way, if I'm wrong,
then you also have the caveat of, but I could be wrong.
Exactly. That's what we also need, that sound. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We're just over there. We have the word yeah. Yeah.
We say it so much. So bad. It's just you don't need to say okay and yeah that many fucking times in a row.
But then it makes me think, is that how we talk in our normal conversations?
Yes.
Do we really say it that much?
Yes, it is. We are annoying.
We are who we are.
Any Hoosier.
Any Hoosier.
Yes, my bad. Any Hoosier. To get serious, we are traveling to Portland, Indiana to uncover the tragic and mysterious case of Garnett Ginn.
Okay.
A dedicated teacher whose life was cut short under perplexing circumstances in 1950.
Oh, no.
So the information on this case was very sporadic. I would see something somewhere and try to go fill in the gaps of what they were mentioning. And it was very difficult to find.
Interesting.
But I found this one podcast. It's called Buried Bylines, which I thought was kind of clever.
Yeah.
And they're not former reporters, but journalists, something.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in their show notes, use the same website we do for our newspapers.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, this is great. So lucky for me, I didn't have to go in and read and find all those articles. They did it for me.
Beautiful.
Yes. So a lot of what I use is information from them that kind of helped fill in some of the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then just other stuff that I found on the internet and whatnot. And a Reddit post that was very detailed. So
I do love a good Reddit post.
Yes.
Detailed Reddit post.
It was good. Feel free to pause me and ask questions.
Okay.
Because there's no specific order. And I fill in weird information as I go.
All right.
So
bring it on.
Yeah. Garnett Ginn was born in 1916 and was a 33-year-old home economics teacher at Portland High School in Indiana. Portland is in northeast Indiana, close to the border of Ohio. Education was a profession that ran in her family. Her father was a principal at another local high school, and her mother, sister, and brother were also all teachers. That's how it is on my dad's side of the family.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's kind of like your side of the family.
Yeah. They're all teachers.
So there's a big connection with you in this story. Okay, only those two parts, but still.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
Well, no, I don't want you to die either. But I'm just saying.
Yeah. She was nearing the completion of her master's degree and was an active member of the Psi Iota Xi sorority. And I know I said that right.
I don't doubt you at all.
Because I know my Greek alphabet.
Yeah.
Known for her kindness and dedication, Garnett was well respected by both colleagues and students. On February 28th, 1950, Garnett failed to appear for her classes. Concerned by her uncharacteristic absence and unanswered calls, the school's superintendent went to her home. At the time, she was living in a small home and renting a garage down the street as a spot to park her 1949 Pontiac.
Interesting.
That's what I thought too, but everything that was done, said, whatever, I just chalked it up to being 1950.
No, I mean, that does make sense. Like, if you don't have a garage, it's like, people who live in apartment complexes.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pay for a garage. For people who might not know, like in DC, if you live in an apartment in DC, you're also paying to use their garage.
Right. It's also, but it wasn't like the garage we think of where it's like multiple levels. It was like a garage,
Like a person's garage?
Yeah, like a personal garage that she was renting from someone.
If I had the ability to do that, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But I would use the garage.
Yeah. There he discovered a grim scene. Garnett was found hanging from her car's passenger door in her garage and a sewing machine belt around her neck.
Oh my God.
She was positioned on her knees, wedged in a narrow 14-inch space between the car and the garage wall.
So she's outside of the car, or she's hanging outside of the car?
No, she's outside the car on her knees.
Okay.
With the belt around her neck, with the other side attached to the car door handle.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Multiple sources claim they did not believe foul play was involved. The coroner.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
The coroner determined Garnett's cause of death to be strangulation and her time of death to be around 11 p.m. on the 27th, so the night before.
Mm-hmm.
The initial ruling by the Jay County coroner was suicide, and he also reported that the sewing machine belt resembled the one that was missing from Garnett's.
Like sewing machine.
Her body was promptly prepared for burial without an autopsy. Garnett's parents, Gail and William Ginn, were immediately skeptical of the suicide ruling. Her family said that Garnett had visited them about a week before her death, and she seemed very happy and was excited about the new car she had just bought. She was also taking classes to get her master's degree. They requested a re-examination, but the coroner declined. Persisting, the Ginns approached the Indiana State Police, who agreed to investigate further.
Okay.
The Indiana State Police exhumed Garnett's body and conducted a second autopsy, or a first autopsy.
First one, yeah.
But examined her a second time.
Yeah.
Yeah. At Indianapolis General Hospital. This examination revealed alarming findings. Garnett had suffered 7 blunt force injuries to her head. Manual strangulation indicated by a broken hyoid bone and bruising.
How did the first autopsy person, coroner, not figure out the blunt force trauma injuries to the head?
That's what everyone asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that seems really suspicious.
Yeah. Additionally, there were blood spatters on the side of her car and tears in her clothing, suggesting a violent struggle. These findings led to the conclusion that Garnett had been brutally beaten and strangled before the scene was staged to appear as a suicide.
Yeah.
Journalists from the Indianapolis Star conducted their own investigation separate from the police. So a lot of this, there were some that once police were like, oh shit, it's a murder, and went back and did some investigating. Some of that's from that.
Okay.
But then a lot of the initial stuff is done by these reporters from the Indianapolis Star that did their own investigation. And supposedly they were the ones who pushed the Garnetts to be like, hey, you should get her re-examined.
Okay.
And things like that. One of the things they reported was on the position of Garnett's body when she was first discovered. So she was found hanging from her car handle and one knee was resting on the ground. Already it's weird because I'm like, I don't understand how she could do it. The car handle to the ground is not that much of a distance.
Right.
And so one of the things that someone else had mentioned was that it seemed suspicious because you would have to lean forward.
Yeah.
And then survival instinct would kick in and you would probably lean backwards.
Right.
The other thing that the journalist pointed out is that it is practically impossible for anyone to hang themselves when their leg or knee is resting on the ground.
Right. Yeah.
It would prevent them from being able to suspend their body in order to hang themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It was also later discovered that the sewing machine belt police thought belonged to Garnett did not actually belong to her because she didn't even own a sewing machine.
Well, then what machine were they? Okay. Sorry. Yep. Okay.
Police later learned from a student at the high school Garnett taught at. She told them that the sewing machine belt likely came from Garnett's purse. The student said the belt on her sewing machine had broke and she asked her teacher for a new one. Garnett told the student that she would bring her a new one the next day, and the school did not report any missing sewing machine belts. So the police theorized that the one at the crime scene was new and was being brought in for a student.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So here's kind of a timeline of the events that led up to her death.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is from the Reddit post from Hidester.
Okay.
Sorry if I said it wrong. February 27th, shortly before 10 p.m. She leaves the Psi Iota Xi sorority party at the Portland Community Club in what is now the Portland Golf Course.
And how old was she?
33.
So is this like a sorority reunion?
I was thinking something like that, but then again, brushed it off to it being the 1950s.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was like, maybe there's like a local chapter at a university nearby. Maybe it's like a community type of sorority.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't look too much into it, but again, I just brushed it off as it being the 1950s. So, and this community club is on the south end of town.
Okay.
She's just about 3 miles from her home. And at this party, she had offered to host a March 20th gathering.
Okay.
So these things are included in the sense of like she just bought a new car.
Mhm.
She's working on her like she has plans for the future.
Right. Yeah.
And so if she's offering to host a party further down the line,
Mm-hmm.
why would she offer that if she, was feeling that way?
Yeah,
You see what I
absolutely.
mean? So at 10 p.m. that night, she dropped her friend off at home after the party. And later on, this friend, Gladys, told authorities that Garnett was in high spirits. But in retrospect, she said that there had been some odd moments during their sorority meeting. During this, I guess, some sort of singing portion, Garnett supposedly requested 2 songs that I guess were considered a bit melancholy.
Okay.
So my question is, could her friend have been thinking about this initially because they believed her death to be a suicide? And, people looking back be like, oh, here might have been the
Hear
signs.
these things, yeah.
Yeah. Was there something to it? Was there not? Who knows? Maybe her friend is going off of, oh, well, if we believe it's a suicide, here's maybe what could have been a possible sign.
Yep.
Shortly after, witnesses saw her pulling into her garage on 318 North Harrison Street in Portland, about a half a block from the police station. Later that night, a neighbor reported hearing screams. This part makes no fucking sense.
Okay.
But thought it was a cat.
I mean, some cats, when they shriek, it does sound kind of human. No, it doesn't. But like foxes do. Foxes scream. And it sounds like a woman screaming.
Okay, well, she thought it was a cat, not a fox.
Okay, but maybe she's just stupid and mixed up her animals.
But still, it's weird.
Yeah.
The same neighbor also reported that she'd seen a shadow in the garage, but thought it was Garnett herself.
Okay, I mean, plausible.
Yeah. The following morning, when she had failed to appear for her classes, the school superintendent went to her rented garage, located just, again, half a block from the police station. That's when he discovered her body hanging from the sewing machine belt that was tied to the car door. There's also some conflicting reports that say her purse was found knocked over, I think, in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was only a dime left and like her driver's license was missing.
No.
But then some said, I was hard to determine whether it was $40 was stolen or there was $40 left.
Okay.
So it was, is it a robbery because $40 are gone? Or is it definitely not a robbery and a crime of something else?
Because $40 were still there.
Correct.
I see. Okay.
So I don't know, but $40 for 1950 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So at this point, police are the ones who are now like examining and like really giving a lot of information to reporters like during these next few months. So I think April 15th, 16th, which was maybe a month and a half since she was murdered,
right,
is when they like take over. And
Okay.
like it was like published that like the findings from the autopsy. And so they take over and they really do, like at this point though, they really like hit the ground running and investigate, but it's a month and a half later.
right.
So this case is just interesting how the information is shared, the up and downness of it, of like high intensity, high investigation in the media to like nothing. Then back in the media, investigate, like all that stuff, and then nothing.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it's weird. Police examined her car along with her clothing, and they found blood in various places on her gloves.
Okay.
So if she had just hung herself, there wouldn't be blood
There
in
shouldn't
all these
be.
places.
Right.
They also found blood spatter and bits of hair inside of her car. The crime scene was compromised early on, and as curious neighbors and onlookers walked through the area before it was properly secured.
1950s, yeah.
This led to a loss of potential evidence. Officials at the time believed whoever killed Garnett was lying in wait in her garage until she got home. They theorized that Garnett fought back and potentially bit her killer or hitting them, causing a nosebleed, leaving some of the blood spatter found inside her car. So they thought some of it was belonged to the killer, not necessarily her.
We didn't have the technology at the
No,
time. Right.
Definitely
Okay.
not. There was also blood found on the light switch of the garage. I'm not sure if the light was, I think people were saying the light was left on. And so the police believe that this indicated either the killer had like just moved too fast before she could turn the light off and just left it as is. I'm assuming because the light was in the on position where you could see the blood versus like on the actual switch part itself, not just like the plate.
Yeah.
Or that the killer might have turned it on afterwards to like inspect and see the scene.
But then wouldn't it have been on a different part of the light switch then if it had been off and then the killer turned it on afterwards?
I think it was just because it was on the switch. Like if he had blood on his hands, he would have transferred it to the switch.
Like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was picturing like, say the light's in an on position, so you see the word on or whatever.
Yeah.
Blood was on there. And then if you turn it off, that off part doesn't have any blood on that, then you could know which way it was if the blood had like spattered on that.
Right. See, the thing is they say spatter a lot, but I think that includes any sorts of drops or smudges or transfer. It's just they all use the same word.
I see.
Yeah. At least I'm assuming that. When they talk about like him turning on the light, I'm imagining there's blood on his hands after having hit her.
Right.
And he gets it on the switch.
Yeah.
Witnesses reported hearing screams the night of her death, but dismissed them at the time. This is where, again, it gets weird. These things are mentioned and then nothing. Anonymous threatening phone calls were received by both investigators and reporters, warning them to lay off the case. And that is the direct quote. But buried bylines noted that the call that was reported came on April 6th, which was nearly a week before the second autopsy report was even declaring it a murder.
That makes it suspicious.
Correct. Authorities also reported they were looking into a suspicious letter that was written to the school superintendent in regards to Garnett's death. It supposedly wasn't as threatening as the phone call to the news reporters, but it was of interest. And that's it. That's all I got for you on those two things.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Great.
Police had told reporters at the time that they were surveilling two men of possible interest. One man lived about 100 miles outside of Portland, so he ended up being cleared of any suspicion. The other was a Portland resident, but he was labeled as high priority.
And how'd they find these two men? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
The thing with the high priority person is I think there was a newspaper later on that claimed that he wasn't like a politician or anything, but he was of high prominent. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah. At the time, police said that they were investigating every possible lead, no matter how small. They had also learned of a 19-year-old who had quickly rushed out of town on the 28th, which would have been the day after the murder and when the body was discovered. A bus driver told police that the kid seemed really nervous, especially when they passed a police car on their way to Detroit, which is where the boy said he was going. And like I said, one of the prominent theories involved the local married optometrist.
I'm sorry. This is so random.
I know, but it's, to me, I'm like, is the prominent person the optometrist or are these two different people?
Right.
I don't know. But it seems to me that, if you're a doctor, it's a small town, you're going to have high prominence.
Right. Because I was wondering that, like, is he the only optometrist or are there many optometrists? Because if there's many, you're not going to have prominence. But if you're like one of the only ones.
I think it's probably one of the only ones. It just said involved a local married optometrist with whom Garrett was rumored to have an affair with. So supposedly she was having an affair with this optometrist.
Okay.
Reports indicated that Garnett had filed actually a complaint against this individual, stalking her shortly before her death. So remember I said she lived really close to the police station?
Yeah.
So I guess when this initially was going on, he was being like pushy.
The optometrist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was like, no.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't stop and was like stalking her. And so she went to the police station that's right down the street from where she lives to like complain about it. And supposedly they just gave her a whistle to blow in case of an emergency.
Like a real whistle?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of insulting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Like, here's your rape whistle.
Yep. Exactly.
Great.
And I think this person also left town soon after the incident, which brought even more suspicion.
Which is also, very suspicious.
But again, there's also reports from newspapers saying that during their initial investigation, police were not able to locate any male associates. And in fact, police said that Garnett had a reputation for not having any male friends.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Due to the mishandling of evidence and the passage of time, no charges were ever filed. This case essentially disappeared from the public eye by 1951.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 70 years later that the police began to look into it again.
70?
70.
So that's like 2020.
2019.
Wow.
Yep. In 2019, the Portland Police Department reopened Garnett's case, hoping to shed new light on the decades-old murder mystery.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, I do know. I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
Investigator Todd Wicke had been re-examining the limited available evidence and interviewing individuals who might have information. A recent tip led investigators to consider that someone may have been hiding in Garnett's garage waiting for her to return home.
A recent tip?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Apparently the person had been like a teenager at the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And just decided all these years later to come forward?
I guess they were afraid beforehand.
Huh.
Yeah. And even supposedly they were still even a little nervous. But I guess this person had done work on said garage to fix beams that had broken, which had led police to think that someone was standing there waiting for her and then attacked her.
Ugh.
Yeah. The tipster also named a potential suspect to police, but officials say that that person has since passed away. Yeah. But what it sounded like was that they looked into this person of interest, which I believe is the optometrist, and based on like the physical appearance, the timeline of when they left, and I forget there was another thing that they included. They're like, okay, yeah, he's a good match. He's a strong suspect.
Interesting.
The other thing too that is crazy. Over the years, all physical evidence, including the sewing machine belt, fingerprints, blood samples, crime scene photos, disappeared.
Of course it did.
They're gone.
It always does.
So when investigators were looking into this case, 2019, they were going off newspaper articles.
Oh,
essentially the ones that I saw, the other podcast saw, like that's what everyone's using because that's the only reports left.
Wow.
And they included a lot of details because one investigated and then like for like the span of like 5 days, the police, were constantly giving information about what was going on and then they just stopped. Yeah.
Very suspicious.
Yeah. So they had to rely on newspaper articles and personal recollections to piece together the case. So essentially people in their 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or no longer with us.
Right.
The investigation faced other numerous challenges. The passage of time made it challenging to make definitive progress. So even though police had identified a person of interest, the local optometrist rumored to maybe have an affair with Garnett or possibly his wife, no charges were filed due to the lack of physical evidence and the passage of time.
Yeah.
The case has haunted the small community of Portland, Indiana for decades, leading to rumors and speculation about identities of those involved. Some individuals have faced unwarranted suspicion, affecting their reputations within the community.
Aw.
It is because of this that authorities decided not to disclose the name of their suspect to the public.
Ugh.
So they didn't have enough evidence to definitively say.
Okay.
And because of what has happened to other people over the years, they're like, we have someone in mind, but we're not going to name them because there's no way for us to definitively prove it.
Right.
In conclusion, the tragic death of Garnet Ginn remains one of Indiana's oldest unsolved cases. It highlights the critical importance of thorough investigations and the preservation of evidence. Garnett's story is a somber reminder of how justice can be elusive, especially when initial missteps occur. Today, her case continues to be a topic of discussion and speculation, symbolizing the enduring quest for truth and closure. If you have any information regarding the murder of Garnet Ginn, you can contact the Portland Police Department, and that information will be in our show notes. And that is the unsolved mystery of Garnet Ginn.
Well, damn.
I think I saw somewhere that they closed the case, but it's labeled as unsolved.
Oh, okay.
But I think they closed it.
Because, yeah, I mean, at this point,
right.
It's like one of those, we've covered them before, where it's like, yeah, it's unsolved, but it at this point will never be solved.
Yeah, and I saw an interesting comment on the Reddit post that meant that was saying that, good on the family for really pushing to get this re-examined because it would have forever just been labeled as a suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not that it's been solved, but still, it would have never been investigated further.
Right.
And this person made a good comment of luckily she had a family that could do that and were successful with it. But can you imagine all the other people where this has happened to, where there's no autopsy or evidence is looked aside or whatever the case may be.
Where it's just labeled as something simple. Yeah.
Right. And so then it's never further investigated.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's a very interesting point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, actually.
You know, like I think about like the people who are missing, where they're either not labeled as missing because they have no one to say so, or they just poof disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought of it too as like the cause of death being labeled as something it's not.
Yeah.
And therefore the proper investigation never happened.
Yeah. I mean, that happens a lot too in a lot of like other crimes that we've covered where the wife or whoever poisons the husband and then it's labeled as just like natural causes, not death. So it's never looked into.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Oh, well, that's sad.
It is sad because she was a teacher and we love teachers.
We do love teachers.
And she's getting her master's degree. I don't know what it was in. I'm making the
assuming teaching.
Yeah, education.
But yeah, I mean, that also just rules away the suicide because why would you put yourself through grad school if you're doing it for nothing?
Believe you me.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying it.
As someone who just went through it.
Exactly. As someone who saw you just go through it.
And like, I think what's getting to me too sometimes is registering that some of these people we talk about are now either younger than us.
When like something happened?
Yeah. Or like she was 33.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, you know, I think back then I look at the 1950s. I'm like, oh, 33. She was like an adult.
Ancient.
Right. But then I'm like, oh, she's only 3 years older than I am.
Right.
And was on a very similar path.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of weird to think like we were essentially, or we are, well, me, not you necessarily, more so me than you, are like in the exact same spot as this person.
Yeah.
And her life was cut off.
Yeah. It's really creepy.
You know, and like I think about too, just these stories of people and like the accomplishments that they were starting or just the things that they were doing, whether it was getting their life back on track or already being successful or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And their life is cut short. I always think about like, what would have happened? How different would our world have been? Had that person.
That one person.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the butterfly effect.
Exactly. Like how big of an impact on our future did that person's death make for us?
Mm-hmm. So. No, yeah, absolutely.
Especially like people that are doing really good for the community too and like giving back. I'm like, had they been able to continue that work, where would we be now?
Yeah.
So just
wild to think about.
Part of thinking, you know, when you talk about these things, it's a natural thought to have. So, sure.
Well, sad.
Yeah. And it's unsolved technically.
Yeah. And it, again, like we said, it'll be one of those that will forever be unsolved.
Yeah. What I'm hoping is that they gave something to her family that was a little bit more substantial that maybe they didn't give to the press.
Maybe. It's also just really suspicious. Like, not saying that she's not important in the community, but she doesn't seem to be like a prolific person in the community, like one of those high profile people. So it's like, why did her stuff just mysteriously go missing?
Yeah, a lot of people like are suspicious of cover-ups.
Yeah.
And things like that, which like that would be like the kind of stuff I would try to go back and find. Like what specifically happened that made them think cover-up or whatever the case may be. And it was hard to fill in some of those gaps. So like you have the threatening letter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What was that? Why were people threatening to get this case not looked into? But then it's like, it's just mentioned. And then there's this huge gap of time.
Maybe it is like with the high profile optometrist.
Yeah.
And it would ruin his life and his credibility if something happened about like him doing something to this girl. So he's the one who called and said, don't look into this. And then.
Well, he left about a month after her death.
Right. That's super suspicious.
Which would have been right about the time that the police started investigating it as a murder. So.
I bet that's who their prime suspect is.
Yeah, I think that's who it is too. I think all they've said is the optometrist and his wife. And I was hoping that I could find, like, I was like, is this what they've come up with, or did they take it from a newspaper? And did that newspaper say the name?
Right.
Nope.
Oh.
So.
Well.
Yeah. But they did, like, someone gave that name and they did investigate that name. And based on what they came up with like timeline and description and all that, they strongly think it is that person, which is the optometrist and or his wife. They just don't want to say his name.
Right.
Yeah. Which I understand.
I get it too. I get it.
Yeah.
But I don't like it.
Correct. Same.
Well, good job covering a case from the 50s that probably didn't have a lot of information.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
The newspapers in the 1950s did a good job.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
It just was after that, nothing happened.
Yeah,
There was,
especially with it being not looked into for what, did you say 70 years?
Right. And even now, it stops at 2019.
That's so wild.
Anything current is all just people recapping everything I just told you.
Yeah, like what we just did.
Exactly. That's it. There's nothing new from 2019.
Weird.
So that's also why I think it's closed but unsolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
Yeah. What's spooky to you pulling, Lauren?
I am covering cemeteries.
How's that one? They're cheering for you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So the first cemetery I will talk about today is the 100 Steps Cemetery.
Sounds really familiar.
Does it?
No. Yes, but no. Because some other time I did just the steps to hell.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't 100 steps.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This one is.
Okay.
Okay. So this is located in Brazil, Indiana.
Wow. Indiana. You just
taken all the names.
Mooching off all these names.
In Clay County stands the Cloverland Cemetery. So this cemetery is more commonly known by the name Carpenter Cemetery, or even more popular, 100 Step Cemetery. And it is one of the most documented haunted locations in the United States.
Wow.
Supposedly. There are at least 323 aged, crooked, and occasionally collapsing tombstones, some which date back to the 1840s.
What a list of adjectives.
And there are stories about the cemetery dating back to the Civil War.
Wow.
As most cemeteries seem to be, it is considered one of the 7 gates of hell, shockingly, and was built to act as a direct link to the devil. But by the 1950s, the ritual that surrounded the 100 Step Cemetery had become solidified within the community. But first, we need to talk about some stuff that used to go down here. So, in 1892, the cemetery did suffer at the hands of body snatchers.
Oh.
We have talked about these before, but I'll cover it again.
Yeah.
Though it was common practice in the 19th century, it was illegal. So nowadays, medical schools have cadavers to practice on, but back in the 19th century, that wasn't common. So resurrectionists, as they were called, would go to the cemeteries to try to find those who had been recently buried.
But you still have to check off, I can donate to science in order for them to use your body.
Not in the body snatcher time.
No, that's what I'm saying, is now.
Oh, yeah.
You had said scientists can use it now. I was like, yes, but.
Oh, yeah.
You still got to get permission.
As long as people are like, yeah, that's cool if you do it with my body.
Yeah.
Back then, people were buried and people the body snatchers were like, I need this.
Whether or not you were cool with it, they would snatch you.
Exactly. Yep. Back then on your grave, do not body snatch me. At night, they would exhume the bodies and sell them to medical establishments, one of those in Indiana being Ashbury College, which is now DePauw.
Okay.
D-E-P-A-U-W. So I assume it's DePauw, which used to be Ashbury College.
Go pause! DePauw! Rawr.
Cat noise. Okay, so on November 20th, 1892, a story was reported in the Indianapolis Journal. So 2 years prior to 1892.
1890.
Yeah.
Okay.
A wealthy farmer named George West had to bury his daughter Emma. She had died from, quote, ordinary disease. There was nothing to make West think that anything would happen to his daughter's body. Recently, in regards to 1892, Mr. West bought a lot at the cemetery and wanted to remove his daughter from her current resting place to rebury her at this new plot. When they reached the coffin in the ground, everyone present saw that it was upside down and the corpse was missing.
Aww.
So body snatching was a big thing in this cemetery. So we might as well get into the legend. I just thought that was an interesting fact to know about the cemetery. So
think her tombstone is still there?
I don't know. That's a good question. There is supposedly a set of stairs in the beginning of the cemetery. You have to get up the stairs to get to the cemetery.
Okay.
At exactly midnight on a moonless night, you need to start climbing the stairs, counting each step as you go. There should be 100. So by the time you reach the top, you should have counted to 100.
What if you get up there and it's 97, you're like, shit, I miscounted. You gotta go back to the beginning. Oh.
That could be a part of this.
Oh.
So when you reach the top, you should turn right and look out over the headstones. When you do, you should spot a man. This is the original caretaker of the cemetery. He is described as being, quote, demonic but not harmful.
Okay.
He will then provide you a vision of the date and nature of your deaths.
Oh, no, thank you. Nope. You already lost me at the man.
There's just like a creepy man in the cemetery. Yeah. And people are like, he'll come from behind a tombstone and you'll see this man staring at you.
No, thank you.
After you have received your vision, you need to climb back down the stairs, again, counting as you go. But if you get to the bottom and count 100 again, the same number you got the first time, it means the vision the caretaker showed you was false.
Oh, shit.
But if you...
That's a lot of pressure.
But if you get to the bottom and didn't count 100, the caretaker either returns and kills you right on the spot.
Jesus.
Or it just means the vision he showed you was real and you will die in the manner that he showed you.
As someone who regularly miscounts,
don't go here.
I'm not.
Don't try to skip the steps, though, and run down the hill next to the steps. It is said that if you try to cheat and do that, a devilish hand will push you to the ground, leaving a deep red handprint that will last for several days.
It gives you a 5-star. Wait, I have a question. Okay, what if I walk up the stairs and I get 97? Do I not see the guy?
I don't know.
And then if I walk back down and also get 97, does that count for getting it the same both times?
I don't know, actually. No one ever brought up that particular question or experienced that particular experience.
Is it 100 steps and the last step you take, the flat part,
I think because that's technically a step,
is 100?
That would probably be like your feet land at 100.
So then when you step onto the ground,
that would be
the 100 step.
Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, with any legend, there are a million different variations. So some stories say that as you are walking back down the stairs, hands will come out of the ground to try and trip you up, or the cries of children and people who need help will echo in your ears, all in an attempt to disrupt your counting.
Wait a minute. Where being a teacher comes in handy.
You can just block out all the noise.
I constantly have children interrupting me, making me miscount, and I can ignore it.
So that might be a strength for you on these steps.
Yes.
But sometimes your feet will sink into the steps, even though they are made of stone, and you will be stuck there as the voices get louder and louder.
Okay, that part, I'll just take off my shoes.
It is also said that for some, there will be 100 steps going up and only 99 coming down.
See, that's on them. They miscounted.
Should this be the case, the last step will ensure that you are stepping directly into hell. Another says that after you arrive at the top, the caretaker may actually refuse to tell you your future. Then as you turn to leave, you notice that the steps have disappeared altogether.
That's really funny. No. You don't get to know your future.
And like 100 steps is a lot. That's a lot of steps. I used to have to climb up 55 to get to my front door, and that was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, top to bottom is like 80 steps.
At school.
At school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Another important part of the legend, apparently, every time you go to the stairs and count, you lose 7 years of your life.
Okay.
But be warned, if you try to start counting at any time other than midnight, you, one, won't be able to count to any number higher than 60. The steps will like just end at 60, not you forget how to count. 60? What comes next?
So there's only 60 fucking steps, and somehow we needed to justify why we call it 100 steps to hell.
No, that's if you try any time other than midnight, because other people have counted more than 60. Okay, and possibly two. You won't even be able to make it up the stairs because unseen hands will be pushing down on your shoulders, making each step harder and harder.
Do you have to take these stairs to get into the cemetery?
No, you can climb up the hill. Like there's a hill next to it, but that's cheating. So many have visited and tried to see if the legends were true. Not a single report I read spoke of someone meeting the caretaker and seeing a vision of their death, but plenty did have trouble counting the stairs. Just a few examples. Chris Flock of visitindiana.com said that when he visited, he counted 98 steps up and 96 steps down.
Well, he definitely miscounted one of those times.
Heather H. with Indiana State University said that the first time she went, she got 87 on the way up and 92 on the way down.
Okay, she cannot fucking count.
That part of the legend does seem to be very common and true, though, of people like counting one number up and one number down, like different numbers.
So what we should do is you and I go together and count silently and see what we get and see if we get different numbers.
But I think the miscounting was, it used to be the steps were like kind of decrepit and like some were cracked and some were covered with grass and all of this stuff. They're new now. So I think with the old ones, it was a lot harder to count because like
some things might not be a step.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes so much more sense.
But now it's like new.
Solid.
And no one has, I don't think, has had like issues, but there's not 100 with the new ones.
Yeah.
I don't know how many there are, but. So with the 7 gates of hell, I mentioned that the cemetery is viewed as one of the gates.
Mhm.
Nearby, I want to briefly talk about Hell's Gate Bridge, which is also located in Brazil.
Indiana.
Indiana.
Okay.
So this is an old train overpass. The train no longer runs above, but below is where the spookiness is. So driving through will act as a direct passage to hell. It is said that people who go under are never seen again. But that's dramatic, and most of the time you don't disappear.
Okay.
Blood has been seen dripping from the walls. There has also been the sound of restless spirits believed to be those who didn't survive a train crash nearby. There's also a guardian who protects the property. He is 7 feet tall and can be summoned by flashing your lights 3 times and waiting directly under the bridge. But be warned, flashing your light can also make the graffiti in the tunnel glow. And if you see your name glowing, you will die before the morning sun.
Ooh, that's creepy.
That is creepy. So it is said that both the bridge and the cemetery are linked to the 7 passageways to the underworld. Going through all 7 will open up hell itself.
Oh.
So these are like 2 of them, so 2 for 1. But so I found a quick story to end it, just this particular cemetery. This was written by David B. Jolly from medium.com. He posted this on October 31st, 2016.
Okay.
So I have a nice story for you.
Okay.
And not a ChatGPT story.
Mm-hmm.
This one is David B. Jolly. Zachary Keller was a sucker for haunted houses, haunted graveyards, haunted anything. So when his friend Will had told him about the 100 steps at Carpenter Cemetery, he knew he had to go check it out. The legend was simple. Climb the 100 steps at Carpenter Cemetery, then at the top of the hill, turn towards the open field, and the ghost of the cemetery's first undertaker will appear. Approach the undertaker, and he will reveal your own death through a vision. After, you must proceed back down all 100 steps, stepping on every step exactly, or else you will die the same way that you saw in the vision. And if you attempt to climb or go down the hill without using the steps, you will be pushed to the ground, and a handprint will be left on your body for 7 days. It was a Friday night and everyone was out at the bars and clubs, so he wouldn't have to worry about the police patrolling the cemetery. There were no guards, so it was pretty easy for Zach to sneak in. The cemetery was a little way out of town. Zach rode his bike out there. It was a full moon covering the area and trees with light and shadows. When Zach arrived, he scanned the grounds looking for the grassy hill with steps Willa told him to find. Zach looked down the dark country road with his bike and a flashlight. Then he spotted it. A few yards away, he could see a tall hill leading to the cemetery. As Zach approached the hill, he became nervous and a cold chill ran up his spine. Zach stood at the bottom of the stairs that led up the hill. He started to rethink his decision about going through with the so-called 100 steps. Then he heard a voice whisper in his ear, but he could not make out what it said. Following the voice, he began up the stairs, taking it slow, 1 step at a time. Each step seemed heavier than the last as he continued to climb. Time seemed to stand still. Then after a few minutes, Zach had finally reached the last step in the top of the hill. Following his friend's instructions, Zach turned to the field just to the left of him, and to his surprise—
To the right.
I know. Stories differ.
Okay.
And to his surprise, he saw a tall, dark figure standing among a row of tombstones. Zach's heart began to race. The figure then turned to his direction. Zach approached the figure very cautiously. As Zach approached the figure, he could see the features of an elderly man with wrinkled white skin with sacks drooping under his hollowed black eyes. Zach was taken aback by the man's features. Nothing he had seen like this before. The man held his hand out to Zach and without a word touched his forehead with a long, bony finger. Zach was suddenly hit with the vision of himself falling down the stairs up the hill he had just climbed, snapping his neck on the way down.
Awkward.
Then as quickly as it came, the vision was gone and so was the man. Overcome with fear, Zach made his way towards the other end of the hill. He looked over the edge and saw that it was a steep drop. It also hit him that if he was to survive, he'd have to climb down the stairs, because you can't go down the hill.
Yeah.
Zach went back to the stairs. He looked down at the steps with unease. He took the first step, then the second, then the third. Knowing what his fate could be, Zach took each step slowly
I would sit and scoot down.
and carefully. Right. He was about halfway down when the vision hit him again. The vision struck with such force that Zach lost his footing and tumbled down the steps. The next day, someone discovered Zach's body at the bottom of the steps, his neck snapped, and his eyes wide with fear.
Yeah.
The police investigated the incident and reported that it was an accident. As stated by the police, quote, "This is not the first accidental death on these steps. People need to be more careful when they visit here, especially at night."
Ooh.
So I liked it. I thought it was creepy. So the next cemetery I will talk about is the Hayes Cemetery, sometimes also—
Hey.
Hi, cemetery. Also known as the Main Street Cemetery. Much less fun. This cemetery is located in Wilkes Brown Township in Hancock County and dates back to also the 1840s. Over the years, the cemetery has developed a reputation for being haunted. The cemetery is very open and well taken care of, with many of the Hayes family members being buried here. One of the main hauntings that people speak of in the cemetery is the Devil Child.
I wonder if the devil child comes up from the steps.
Maybe. Supposedly, there is a pitchfork-shaped tree growing from the child's grave.
Ooh.
Creepy. That's how it got its name of the Devil
Yeah.
Child. There's also said to be the apparition of a woman wandering around. I would also bet you anything that she's wearing white.
Probably.
Apparently, her husband hung her from a tree and shot her. So now her restless spirit wanders the grounds.
Okay.
The cemetery is also said to have had body snatchers, but in this case, it's a bit different. Reportedly, those body snatchers were using the bodies for satanic rituals.
Okay, different vibes.
Different vibes, same situation. People who have visited have felt a bad feeling overwhelm them the moment they enter the cemetery. Others have been touched, grabbed, and even dragged. Random screams have been reported. Someone who visited said that while there, they picked up a rock and asked the spirits to throw the rock back. The person threw the rock into the darkness. Right after that, a rock landed right by their feet. What are you thinking?
Just imagining them tossing the rock again against check their head.
I proved I was here. Apparently, it's also a thing for your car to be covered in little child-sized handprints when you leave.
Ew!
Someone who visited said that the handprints looked as if they were trying to open the car doors, the trunk, the hood.
What if it was a little raccoon? Because their hands are
Oh,
tiny.
how cute! And it looked as if little fingers had been dragged down the side of the car.
Ah!
Little kid voices are also often heard both in person and through a spirit box. People have had their cars hit and scratched by some heavy force outside. Spirit boxes have picked up voices telling visitors to leave and that they're going to die. Creepy, malevolent laughter has been heard. A demonic scream is a common experience while at the cemetery. Hauntedplaces.org, because of course.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a bridge that is right next to the cemetery.
Okay.
Ryan B. posted a photo they
Another
took on the bridge.
Okay.
A lot of cemeteries and bridges.
Yeah.
It clearly looks like two figures walking on the bridge, but there was no one on the bridge when Ryan said they took the photo. So it is kind of creepy. The photo's
Yeah.
you can see the picture. It's online.
Yeah.
And the figures kind of look a little see-through, which is kind of weird. Side note, this is also known as Crybaby Bridge because every state has to have one, right?
I was going to say, why does that name sound familiar?
Because every state has a Crybaby Bridge.
Okay.
Story here is as most others are, a mother lost her baby and is still looking for it. But here, if you turn off your car on the bridge and put it in neutral, the mom will push you over the bridge to safety. So, you're on the bridge and she'll, push you so you're on, the mainland.
Uh-huh.
As she does this, you will then hear her scream as she continues her search.
Ew.
One person put this to the test and it actually worked. They were pushed off the bridge to safety, not into the water. They had a spirit box going during the whole thing, and they said that they heard whispers, talking, and screaming. They even heard the names of their dogs being called. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Someone claimed that at the edge of the forest, they saw a tall figure with yellow eyes and what seemed to be pointy ears. When they shone a light at the figure, it disappeared. Then right after, they heard a blood-curdling scream.
Ah!
Another person went and saw a red-eyed figure. When they finally returned home, the back of their car had a huge handprint on the back window.
Ew.
So there you have 2 haunted cemeteries in Indiana.
Do you think when cemeteries are haunted, which to me is a given,
Yeah.
given what's there,
Yeah.
but do you think that if you have someone who's buried there, that you get left alone?
Maybe.
And it's
Because they're protecting you.
yeah, and just people who are going there to see if it's haunted or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones who gets messed with.
I like that theory.
I would hope
You're
so.
going there to visit for respect, you're not going to be messed with.
Yeah.
But you're going there to see if it's haunted, you're going to be messed with.
Yeah.
I like that theory, and I want to say that's what happens.
Okay, cool. Me too. That sounds like a nice one.
But yeah, I don't like the 100 steps thing. Counting and that much, riding on if you're counting correctly or incorrectly is kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you just don't count? You just walk up the stairs. No
I think that
counting.
defeats the whole purpose of going to the cemetery. The main, attraction is the steps. Unless you have family there. But if you don't, then it's just the steps.
Because what if I don't count?
Then I guess you're not going to know if you're going to die the fate that the caretaker shows you or not.
That's fine. I'm hoping he doesn't even show up.
Okay, random question. Would you rather know how you're going to die or know when you're going to die?
How?
Why?
When?
Why?
Because if I know how, whatever that thing is, I'm going to try to avoid it.
And you're going to be terrified of it the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I know when, I could say my goodbyes.
Oh, yeah, you can live your life.
Yeah, live my life, know when it's coming, know what whatever.
Oh, actually, I like that way better.
Say bye to people and be yep, tomorrow's a big day.
Have a going away party.
Exactly. How cool would it be to be at your own funeral?
Actually, I would want to be at my own funeral. I'd want to see who would come say bye to me.
Exactly. So I know my death date. We're going to celebrate the weekend before. I'll be surrounded by loved ones. the last few days.
Do you think, would you be invincible up until that day? Like, do you think you could kind of live a little bit more recklessly knowing that you're not going to die doing any of your reckless activities?
I feel like there's got to be something to that, because if you have, unless it's like one of those, it's like a paradox where you think that therefore you are more reckless and that's why you die when you die. So I think it only is whether or not there's a rule of whether you can cheat it.
Right. Yeah.
If that's solid right there, then yeah, you're going to be pretty invincible, because you know that nothing's going to change that date. Or it could
Because I'd like go skydiving.
Right.
I'd go skydiving. I was going to say, I'd go cave diving. I wouldn't do that.
here's the thing. My irrational fears are not necessarily, I'm afraid I'm going to die. There's parts of it where I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah. What are the other parts of it?
I just don't like being afraid. It's essentially just the anxiety I have on a regular basis. Intensified.
The fear of being afraid.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's just intensified. And I'm like, I don't want to put myself in a position where I feel that way. So I probably still wouldn't do those things because it's not something that I would enjoy.
No, I would do them. Not the deep sea diving, though. I will never. Or go into a cave. Never.
There's other things that I might do, that I might, like, risks I might take that I otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I would rather know the date than anything.
I think now that we've talked it out, I agree.
Yeah. But if I really had a choice, I don't want to know, because I think that shit would trip me out.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't want to know.
Especially if it's a lot closer than you anticipated it to be.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would fuck me up real bad.
This conversation's giving me anxiety.
See? This is why I don't do things that cause anxiety.
No, because now I'm thinking about it.
Exactly.
And I don't like that. I'm just going to spiral out if I keep thinking about it.
And that's how I feel when I'm doing something that's up high. Therefore, even if I know I'm not going to die, I don't want to feel that feeling, because it sucks.
And now I'm thinking of all of those videos I've watched where like they're up really, really high and you like get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. Oh, I do, because I'm not there, so I can watch it. But it's like that feeling in the pit of your stomach. I can watch it. It doesn't mean I'm not getting nervous.
But see, I wouldn't even do that.
Oh, yeah, no. See, I can do it because I'm not there.
See, it's a slippery slope. I avoid things that make me anxious, which you think, okay, that's kind of healthy, not going to do things that are triggering. But then it goes so far as like, I don't do anything. And there's some things that you need to do in life.
There are, yeah.
If you want it to keep moving forward. And so I have to try to balance what is a healthy coping mechanism versus just avoidance. So anyway, that's my TED Talk about anxiety.
With elevators, I can say I'm just the avoidant one. We went to go help my grandma move some stuff yesterday from her place to the storage unit. And she's like, oh, we'll just go in the garage and then we'll take the elevator up. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And so...
Does she live on the second floor?
The third. And from the garage, that would be 4 floors. Mackenzie.
Okay.
But I didn't mentally prepare myself for it. If I don't mentally prepare myself, it's not happening.
I remember we were pulling up to my friend's apartment and you're like, what floor is she on? I'm like, 7. And we're taking the elevator. No, we can't. I haven't mentally prepared myself. And then I was like, well, start fucking preparing, because I'm not taking 7 flights of stairs.
Like, I really, like, okay, when we have a happy hour at this one location I freaking hate going to, it's a nice place. Like, it's a nice bar. I just hate that it's on the 11th floor. So I've taken an elevator. That whole day I won't eat because I'm so nervous about the elevator that I will not eat.
Do you want to hear something else?
What?
Never, like, live above the 7th floor, because then the firemen can't get you.
Was I with you when we heard that?
Maybe.
Because I remember someone recently told me that. Yes, it was at...
We were together.
We were together. We were together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like
the 11th.
When Joe and I were looking for places, we literally, like, places to live, if it was a high-rise building in the picture, nope.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of high-rises. I like how small my building is. Honestly, also because it's really easy to get in and out.
Yeah.
So.
Also, when you have a pet, I can't imagine being on like the 14th floor
Well, that's
and
my
having a
cousin
pet.
wants to move because
Yeah, that's
she's
a
like,
pain.
it's a process just getting her outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to walk down the long, never-ending halls,
Mm-hmm.
take the elevator down,
Mm-hmm.
walk out the never-ending halls down there, and then do it all the way back up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we went to my friend's apartment once. We didn't take the elevator. I had to take the stairs. But anywho, oh my God, we were walking like for 15 minutes just to get to her door. And I was like, how do you take your dog out?
That's the other thing that's crazy too, is like when you get off the elevator and then you take all these winding ways to get to the apartment.
Wild.
It's crazy.
She was smart though. She had like a little turf thing that she had cut out and put on her back patio.
Oh, that's nice.
So her dog could just go right there instead of having to do like the 15-minute trek outside.
Especially like I always let the dog out to pee right before we go to bed.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to walk all the way downstairs.
Same.
So, get that.
Well, that's Indiana.
That's Indiana.
And because Mackenzie and I forgot to do it while we were recording, stay scary and stay safe.